Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Laura Milojevic. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Simplify Solutions. And today we're excited to have our VP of Platform and Technology, Eric Blondin. He'll be discussing and demoing how to streamline your SAC process with Analytics Applications. After the webinar concludes, a short survey is going to appear. So if you guys can please fill that out, we would really appreciate it. As always, please feel free to reach out to Eric or myself after the webinar with any questions. We can answer questions when the webinar concludes as well. So now I will hand it over to Eric and he can get started.
Thank you, Lauren. So welcome, everyone. So today's presentation, if any of you have actually followed the one I did a while back, it was in October. This is really a sequel to it. In part one, I was talking about the potential of Analytics Designer in SAC. In this case, I'm literally applied Analytics Designer functions to a planning scenario. So I'm actually going to walk you through it. The planning scenario itself, I'm going to introduce it in a second. So first of all, as an intro, just to talk quickly, I'll be introducing Simplify. Some of you may not know us, and whoops. Sorry about that. So introducing Simplify, introducing the scenario I'm going to be talking about, then quickly talking about SAC positioning, because I'm going to talk about analytic applications. Who should be concerned by that? Who should be the user? Who should be developing it? How is that position compared to the rest of SAC? So very quickly, just to make sure we're all understanding what we're looking at. And afterwards, obviously, we'll be getting into the actual use case. I'll be walking through the main scenario, and then quickly zooming in on the technical aspect of it, but that's only going to be really the last 5 minutes max of it. So I'm really going to try to focus on the process during this presentation. Do not hesitate. There's a chat window with GoToWebinar. So if you do have a question, just ask it there, and we'll be watching out. I'm probably going to go through the questions at the end. So don't feel left out if you feel I'm ignoring your question. Typically, I'm not really looking at the question box as I'm presenting. Okay. So quickly, Simplify, wrong direction. So Simplify, we're really focused on Sap Analytics solution, and really looking in the past year, it's really been Analytics Cloud that's been our main focus. And again, the planning side of Analytics Cloud. So Analytics Cloud can do a lot of things, and we've really focused our time on the planning aspect of it, and this is the scenario we'll be looking at. In parallel, we have built good expertise on BPC. This is our historical expertise, business objects, business warehouse, data warehouse cloud. We've been investing quite a bit. We may have a nice webinar on data warehouse cloud later this year, and a lot of other requirements around planning and consolidation, like group reporting. We are based in Chicago, although we now have a regional office out of Montreal in Canada. So we're increasing our presence, mainly Midwest historically, now Canada and Northeast. So really don't hesitate to call out if you need assistance or just would like to discuss some potential opportunities around Analytics Cloud and what you think you'd actually like to do with the tool. One of the big differentiators for Simplify is all the pre-packed content. We've been investing in Analytics Cloud planning for the past 2 years and building out a lot of content we can actually use to start a project with you. We've seen firsthand how much value that this actually brings. You bring Analytics Cloud, that's a great solution. But if you also have a complete solution you can start with, obviously we all know those built solutions don't cover all your requirements, but having something that works, that's really applied to your business and built by CPAs mainly, and that's really one of the things that's important with this solution, where it's not developers building what they think people in finance would want. Our prepackaged content is mainly built by CPAs or MBAs or finance specialists, and obviously with the assistance of my team, which is more focused on the development side of things. Okay, and so we focused on a lot of subjects. You see it here on the left around planning. Today, I'm going to focus a bit more on our HR planning scenario, but obviously we cover a lot of different subjects. we have some pre-built analytics, and we have focused on some industries currently, but are building out more content on different industries as well. And as well, and we've done it in the past, we've done some public training sessions. We also do some private training sessions with some of our customers. Don't hesitate if all you're looking for is some help to get started. We'll be more than happy to help you there. So today we'll be looking at HR planning. I will not go through the whole presentation. I did not go back and check the date, but I think it was in May or June of last year that we did our last walkthrough of the whole HR planning solution. So if you want to have an idea of what that is exactly, you can go through our YouTube channel and you will find that video around HR planning. But today I will really focus on one item we optimized using Analytics application. Specifically, when you do inputs by employee, here we have our workflow where you do cost center input by employee. Sorry if it's a bit small, but anyways, that's not a focus of what I'm going to be showing. And in that input by employee, you do have a new hire section. So how do you manage new hires in your budget? How do you get that? And how can you optimize how you actually work with different sources of information within your business? So this is really going to be our focus today. But first, before we actually go into the solution, let's talk about Sap Analytics Cloud very quickly. You may have seen something similar to this slide in the past. And what's really important here is SAC really targets end users. So business users who can do some business intelligence, dashboarding, financial analysts who can use planning and actually build planning. So again, you do not need to have a complete IT team building out your planning solution. You can really get your financial team involved in building out the planning solutions, obviously with the assistance of IT, because there's always some data integration challenges, network security challenges. So, but building out the solution, most of our solutions, again, I mentioned it and I'll say it again, are built out by CPAs, accountants, and other finance specialists. Predictive, so this requires a bit more understanding on how statistics work, but that's embedded in the solution as well. And the last one to the right, Analytic Application Design, this is what we'll be looking at today. So the end solution can really help streamline processes in planning and BI, but building them out, this is one case where you will need application designers. If they don't know, it's not hardcore development, but you will need people who understand the basics of development. But we'll get that in a few minutes. But just as a heads up, what you're going to see, it really can streamline your process. But building it out, if you don't at least understand what JavaScript is and some of those simple programming languages, you'll have a hard time building out something in application design. Talking about SAC, SAC evolves nonstop. So if you've been a SAC customer for a while already, you've noticed that every quarter there's a new release. Every quarter you get a new release on the platform. So last one was Q4, which is November. Next one is February. So this is approaching very soon. And in between, partners like us and some customers who have a test environment actually get kind of intermediate releases where you can test new functionalities in test environments before those are all packaged together in a quarterly release. So right now in February, when it's going to be released, I didn't look, but I'd assume that 2021-02 will be included in the Q1 release, and then they'll keep on working in new functionality. So they're always keeping ahead of where the market is heading and comments customers may have. In parallel, we've built our own roadmap for some of our solutions. So again, talking about HR planning, which is our subject today, we have built our own roadmap about things that we feel will add value to our customers in our pre-packed content. So let's imagine you need HR planning today. We implement a solution, but as we go forward, we actually improve it and we can actually bring these added functionalities to your solution as well. The one we're actually going to look today is this one. We're just releasing in our pre-packed content around new hire and replacement hires. Okay, so this is Analytic application. Those are not all Analytic applications. So regional tax management will be simple planning development. So this is not an Analytic application. Obviously, our own roadmap is very tightly attached to SAP's roadmap. You may know roadmaps.sap.com, where SAP maintains their roadmap. So we always are on the lookout on new functionalities SAP is working on and seeing how some of those could actually improve our solution. So we do plan some of our evolutions based on what we see in their roadmap. So here, 2021 second half, obviously we have a few things we have in mind that will depend on that SAP roadmap. So obviously if it's delayed there, we may be slightly delayed, but we always are on the lookout on new opportunities on that side. And talking about opportunities, if you are an SAC user and you do see things that you find are lacking in the solution, I realize a lot of people are not aware of the customer influence website. And I really encourage you, if you are an SAC user today, or actually an SAP user, because you can really influence a lot of different solutions, go ahead, log in here. So it's really influence.sap.com. Come in here, and in this case here, this is an influence for Analytics Cloud. A lot of people put improvement requests, so you can look at them. Right now, 2,800 of them. So most probably, some of the improvements you have in mind are on that website, and you could just go and vote. The more customers vote for an improvement, the more SAP will actually have a look at it and figure, okay, maybe we should be investing in that improvement because a lot of customers are looking for it. And some of them may be delayed. If there's only one vote, obviously, those are not always as prioritized. If we look in there today, a lot of them in the past few years became actual options within the solution. So really not a waste of time. Take a few hours to go through current improvement requests. And if you don't find something you feel is lacking, well, it's actually quite easy to submit yours. In my case, I did submit one recently because I realized something was missing around security. So right now it's in there, people can vote for it, and maybe at some point it will become part of the solution, because as a user myself, I have noticed some improvements that would be very nice to have for my customers. Okay, so that was it from a quick introduction about SAC and about Simplify. Let us get into our subject. Analytics Designer, as I mentioned, it's really a development platform. So when you do develop it, you do need to create all your different items. When you script all the interactivity in there, you need to input some JavaScript. But today, we won't go in there. We'll look at what it actually does for you. So let's go into Analytics Cloud now and have a look at how this works. So you should all be seeing my screen right now. I think I can actually see what you're seeing. Yes, so that's working. So you're seeing my screen. So I am in Analytics Cloud right now. I have a lot of functionalities available, but I'll focus on my HR planning process I mentioned earlier. So in my HR planning process, I open it. That's one of the shortcuts I have because that's one I use regularly. So, and I apologize right away. Quite often when we are presenting online like this, the SAC is a bit slower. It's kind of competing with the bandwidth I'm using to present. So we have different steps in our process, input by entities. So those are global taxes, bonus targets for the company. So things that are high level that you want to spread out to most of your employee plan. And then cost center inputs by employee. I'm going to focus on this one today. I'm going to click on that step in our process. And I am going to go to the one that's specific to new hires, as I mentioned earlier. So I'll go in here. One thing, if you're in SAC today, you may actually notice different changes also in my interface compared to the one you have, because again, we get the latest releases every time. So what you're seeing here, like that menu at the top instead of the tabs, that's something that's changing in Q1 release, which will be coming soon. Published data is a bit different. You see it a bit more, it's a bit more obvious instead of the ones who have used planning in here with a small icon. You could easily miss it. So now they made it a bit more obvious. What I'm going to look at though, I'm going to go to the third tab, which is cost center and new employee inputs. So today, this is our solution as it is. You have your new hires. So you want to have your base annual pay. So how much money are you going to pay that new position you're posting right now? When do you expect that person to start? And if it's a temporary position during the year, what month is it going to end at as well during the year? So is it going to go all the way till the end? Let's keep in mind, this is a yearly planning process. So by default, end dates will be December. But if you feel this is going to be a temp position, you can put an end date that's earlier, and the base annual pay will be calculated accordingly. Do you have some bonus targets that you're planning to attach to this position? So today you can go and enter this. You can always go and define the different values you're actually going to need to make this work. And typically, if you want to attach that to some information you put in your job posting, you're going to need an Excel file on the side, which has a reference of what was posted, or maybe the website. And separately, also, you're creating a new position. You have no idea what's the standard salary for it. So maybe you're going to need to ask HR, okay, what's our standard salaries for an A2 position? And they'll need to come back to you and give you the standard rates. So how about we fill all that information to be available in SAC, so you don't need to go and read left and right. And actually, with a click of a few buttons, you're able to refer directly to different information like this. So now I entered some information. I'm just going to actually cancel it. So revert data. Any data I entered, I'm just canceling it out. That was just to give you an idea of how the screen actually looks like today. Let me come back out. And now I'm actually going to open my Analytic application. So let's imagine the screen I just looked at. I'm replacing it with an Analytic application that will do the same thing I just did with within my planning story. So here I'm coming. So again, I'm in SAC, but now instead of a standard drag and drop planning interface as we saw before, this is built through scripting. Okay, we'll get into it later. So you come in here. This is the same window I had earlier. You may notice it is the same thing. I could enter my values here again. Also, something else I do, I could add a member. So for example, here I click on the second column, so it knows what I'm adding is in Sales East USA. Since if I had clicked on the first one, I could have entered a specific cost center, but now I clicked on the second one, so it's assuming that first column, we want to keep that value. And so afterwards, I can go and say, this is a new hire. Well, actually, no, wrong column. It's a position here. So let's say it's an E2 position, sales analyst. I want to put in Sales East USA, new hire, same thing. I could, again, as I did before, start typing things. These are standard new hires placeholders, or I can create a new one. Doesn't exist, so I'll just click enter, and then I'm going to create a new master data entry saying, is it going to be active in my plan or not? So I'm not going to do it here. I'm actually just going to go out. That's just an example of something you can still do, which still works, which is what we're doing today. But now what I'm actually going to do instead of that, I'm going to, I'm just trying to remove what I just entered. It's not going to let me, is it? Go here. So now that I've entered those values, I actually see that I can now go and change this value. But I won't do this. Instead, here we have our open positions. So imagine you have your website, and this is loaded in the database somewhere. You can interface Analytics Cloud with your website, so you get the open positions you've posted. So these could be requisition IDs you have on your website, so job opening numbers and so forth that you can actually use as a reference. So in your HR system, for example, like SuccessFactor, you could have all this information and loaded it in SAC. And now let's imagine I want a Sales East. That open request, that one is part of my budget. I want to bring it into my budget. We already have in our job posting when we think that person's going to start. We already know their target salary, their target bonus. So I don't want to type all of this. It's all there already. I just want to link it together. So with just some scripting, I'm going to take that open position. I'm going to link it to my actual plan. And this is actually going to then be part of my planning. So I just click new member. It's taking this value I clicked on, and it's automatically entering it into my plan. So this is directly linked. I do not have to enter things manually. So the information is here, and I could even build it even further to try to synchronize them if there's any change on this side. But right now, it's when I click, it's going to bring the value. It knew the person was starting in May, and then it assumes that person is going to be a full-time position, so it's going to stay the whole year. So that information is filled in automatically. You didn't need to do anything else than select it and copy it on the other side. So this can be very useful when you want to link them to and assign them somewhere to your budget. And in case you're wondering also, okay, this is very high level budget, there's not much information here. One thing to keep in mind, if you look at the complete HR planning demo, the data you're entering here, the start month, end month, it then gets spreads out by month with all the taxes, with all the benefits, with all the costs attached to an employee are kind of generated at a monthly detail within your planning solution. So this is no exception in the backend. That's what actually happens as we build for the rest of our planning solution. So we have this here. Another requirement we have customers talking about often is to be able to refer to existing employees. If it's a replacement hire, maybe I actually want to take the information I have for this employee as a baseline for this new position. So let's imagine here I have in Sales East, I have Maurice Grant. Maurice is just told us he's leaving. So we're actually hiring right now for a new sales director, okay? So we have Maurice Grant, which is actually that new position we created here, but I want to link it directly so I can see the information I have from my existing employee. This is my cost center, so security granted me access to it. So everything is set up from an HR planning perspective. I select Maurice Grant, so I can see this is what I selected at the top. And I know I want to assign it here, and this is the values, these are the values that will be carried over. So I just clicked seed the data, and that value again, now in the back end, it's actually linked the current employee with as a replacement hires. And now the system doesn't know, because it doesn't know when Maurice is leaving, so it doesn't know when the start month, end month is actually. So you could come in then and manually enter these values, so you do have a complete planning information. And what did I do? And then obviously we could say that's going to happen in June. Okay, so so I have all this entered, and now I don't need to have an Excel file on the side. So these current employees, that's already part of HR planning, so we can have a direct reference to it. Open positions, that's always in the database in SuccessFactors on your website. So there's always a way of loading it in here. And a third scenario we haven't implemented yet, but standard salaries. So you are hiring someone at a certain level, in a certain position, in a certain city. HR has those standard information. So you could decide to integrate these standard HR salaries, benefits, and so forth in this as well, and just select your benefit, select your new hire, and again, it's going to populate it with that information and keep it linked. So if at some point there's some updates necessary, well, you have all of that included in your plan. So this is really a clear application of what we can do from an analytic design perspective in SAC. How is that built? Let me just go and edit. So if I open this, I won't spend too much time in here. I don't want to, I know we have different profiles on this presentation. I don't want to get too much into the technical detail, but just to get an idea of what can be done. So all the different objects we're seeing are here, but a lot of it, for example, every time I'm going to have that script, it's going to get the information, and it's going to get all this information in memory, so it knows that cost center IDs, employee IDs, position IDs, all this information, this is all JavaScript inspired. So you can really use it here. And then when you create, for example, a new hire, you select it, click it, and then you're actually going to get the member for the new hire, and you're actually going to be able to refer it when you run your script. And then afterwards, you have options into in SAC that allow you to actually write the data and submit the different information, reapply different calculations on that information you actually read. Have the different tab strips. This is what we have here. If I go here, I select this tab strip, we see open position, current employees. These are the two tabs that are here, and I can really script them differently. Different buttons that are at the top. So new member and seed are actually at the same spot depending on the tab strip I'm selecting. This is just going to say, okay, this button is visible, this one isn't, and vice versa. So you have both of these available. So you really can customize and enable your process to cover what your users would actually want to be able to do in their planning process. And they can really save themselves a lot of time when they can have all those references together. And with just a few click of a button, they can go through their process. So, are there any questions right now as to what you have seen on this demonstration today? So if you look at the GoToWebinar, this is you have a question section you can actually look at. I see someone had audio issues, so I hope you were able to fix it. But aside from questions around audio issues, any other questions anyone may have here that you'd like me to clarify around this process? Because again, the objective here is not to go into pure development. So the idea was to demo the process, how it can enhance your planning process. If no one has specific questions, this will be the end of our presentation today. So I'm just going to leave it a minute or two if anyone comes up with a question. If not, really do not hesitate to contact us directly. There's a lot of stuff you can do with Analytics Designer. Anyone who was in my workshop, in my webinar back in October, I was actually presenting the Analytics Designer handbook that was dated in June, but pretty much at the same time, a new handbook came out with the Q4 release that has new functionalities, that explains use cases, gives you a lot of information. And as you can see, there are a few pages in here. I think there are over 300 pages now of information as to what you can do with the Analytics Designer and really the improvements it can do for your process. And in case you're wondering, for sure, building something with Analytics Designer will take more time than a standard story in Analytics Cloud, but you can go so much further. And that's where Simplify's pre-packed content can actually assist you in improving your process with limited investment, because more and more we have Analytics Designer tools that are built in our process. We can implement them for you, and then afterwards, obviously, we can actually you can look at it and start learning how that was done and start building your own if you, at some point you want to take ownership of the solution you have in-house. I see Aaron raise your hand, but there's no question. Am I missing a question? So are you able, Aaron, are you able to put the question in the question box? Yes. Because I honestly, if you put your question there, because I don't think, you want to be unmuted to ask a question? I think I can do that. I can unmute Aaron. So Aaron, if that's what you want, I'll be unmuting you right now. Go ahead, Aaron.
Can you hear me, Aaron?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you for the presentation. Because I have just one question. I saw you created add a new employee in the tables. Is there any ways, because this is kind of master data, is there any way that we can send this master data back to the success factor or like?
Okay, I'll try to answer that as clearly as possible. So when you're creating that master data, you're creating it obviously in SAC. So it's an SAC dimension table. So there's no native functionality to send it back to success factors. So if you are creating an SAC, I hate doing that, but I would have to return the question to a success factor team. How can they easily import information that was created in SAC, because we can generate a file afterwards that SuccessFactors could upload, but that really would be on the SuccessFactors side.
Okay, so we still need like export the Excel file from SAC and we give it to the SuccessFactors teams, right?
If you create master data in SAC and you need it to appear in SuccessFactors, sadly, yes, that's still the current solution.
Okay. Just another question. Well, maybe there's some master data where we created in S4, for example, we created from SAC for the master data in S4. Will it be the same solution like we send back to SuccessFactors? That means in SAC, we created some master data and we export as an Excel file and we send this Excel file to the S4. Like we can only do this way. There's no way like directly link between SAC to S4.
And there are ways, honestly, and that would actually be an interesting next webinar for me. But there are ways of interacting with OData as well. Sometimes you will have some OData APIs you're able to call from SAC applications, and by calling that OData API, you can actually push back the data in the other system. Also, talking about S4, there are additional integration points with S4, but so we would need to look at the exact scenario to figure out if we can use those standard items or if we need to build something custom like what we have with OData here.
Okay, so we can still link some master data with the OData technique. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for answering me. Thanks.
My pleasure. I'll mute you again. Thank you very much. Anyone else has any questions? If that's it, let me just scroll through. No other questions. So thank you all for attending. And as Lauren mentioned, you're going to get a quick poll at the end. Please fill it out. It's going to help us really understand what was appreciated, what you'd like to see in a future webinar, and what you'd like to see improved in our webinars in the future. Thank you very much.